out there, welcome to Wake Up to the Bible. I'm Daniel Kaplan. I'm here with my father, Dr. Kaplan. We're going through the books of the law, Genesis through Deuteronomy, over the course of this year, a little bit every day. Today we're reading Exodus chapter 10, verse 1 through 11. Now we read through the Robert Alter translation, and then we discuss afterwards. All right. And the Lord said to Moses, "Come into Pharaoh, for I myself have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I may set these signs of mine in his midst, and so that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son how I toyed with Egypt, and my signs that I set upon them, and you shall know that I am the Lord." And Moses and Aaron with him came into Pharaoh, and they said to him, "Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long can you refuse to humble yourself before me? Send off my people that they may worship me. For if you refuse to send off my people, look, I am about to bring tomorrow locust in all your territory, and it will cover the eye of the land, and no one will not be able to see the land, and it will consume the rest of the remnant left you from the hail, and it will consume every tree you have growing in the field. And they will fill your houses, and the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all of Egypt, the like of which your fathers did not see, nor your fathers' fathers, from the day they were on the soil until this day." And he turned and went out from Pharaoh's presence. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, "How long will this fellow be a snare to us? Send off the men that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is lost?" And Moses and Aaron with him were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, "Go, worship the Lord your God. Just who is going?" And Moses said, "With our lads and with our old men we will go, with our sons and with our daughters, with our sheep and with our cattle we will go, for it is a festival of the Lord for us." And he said to them, "May the Lord be with you the way I would send you off with your little ones, for evil is before your faces." I think that's the last one, or do we keep going? Oh, one more. "Not so. Go, pray the men, and worship the Lord, for that is what you seek." And he drove them out from Pharaoh's presence. All right, so once again, we have the request, and we're still not at the request of just leaving. We're still at the request of just let us go and have a festival. What are some of the things that come to mind as you look over these verses?
Once again, Robert Alter scores. This word means come. The name of the portion is bo, meaning come. And everybody says go, but he said come.
Yeah.
And so what did he mean come to Pharaoh? Well, it may be that the subtle interpretation is continue coming to him or going to him, but continue what you've already been doing. And I saw one or two translations that tended to have that concept, or maybe come in the sense that if you come, I'm there present. So you're coming to Pharaoh, but you're also coming to me because I'm involved in the situation. It's subtle, but I think there's some reason why the word bo is there rather than lech. Go.
I wonder too if it's. I'm just thinking narratively. One of the things they tell you. I tell people this, is that what happens in a story is that a character goes from being reactionary to proactive. And so essentially what you have is, before maybe you could say, well, he was getting summoned by Pharaoh, he was going there, but this is like, now he's kind of stepping it up, and he's now trying to take control over the situation, perhaps.
Evidently, Pharaoh had some respect for these men because he hasn't tried to harm them in any way. So he seems to have some kind of a little bit of fear of what he would
have some fear with all the stuff
what might happen to him if he harmed them.
Right.
But at the end, he says, you're not going to take everybody out.
Nope.
Only a select number can go.
Well, I have a thought on that. We'll get there.
All right, we'll get there.
So anyway, he said, because he says, "How long can you refuse to humble yourself before me? Send off my people that they may worship me." And so ultimately that's the request. The request at this point is not even that they're no longer slaves or they leave. The request is simply let them maintain their religion, right? Let them be able to speak to reality. And it's interesting because, yes, when you have authoritarian dictatorships, that's often at the root of the issue, is that it's not even It's not even that you're so upset that you're under the thumb of them because of some oppressive financial system or something. They literally won't even let you perceive reality or speak to reality or anything like that. It just becomes completely out of line. So I just think that's interesting because I think we're so used to the Hollywood version where it feels like from the beginning they're always just going in. They're like, let us get out of here and let us get out. And that's not really the way the story unfolds. The story unfolds that, you know, I don't know. Ultimately, they were going to leave because God said so, but he was giving Pharaoh a different way of that would happen, I would guess, if he would have said yes, in theory. Obviously, he knew he wouldn't because he had already resolved to not recognize reality. And then we have that hardening of the heart. Here's the thing about the hardening of the heart that I found that I thought was really interesting. And it's a little speculative, but if you think of Egyptian culture, one of the big things they have in their culture is the concept in the afterlife. The way that you end up getting somewhere is your heart, and they weigh it. And if it's heavier than a feather, then that is bad, right? So I think there's something to that. That there's a little bit of a play on that. I think that's really interesting because it's such a part of it's a part of their culture. I guess it's like Osiris, and he weighs it on the scale, and then it has to be less heavy than the feather. And so the idea that he's making it heavy is essentially kind of sealing his fate in a sense too, even within their own framework. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just think that's really interesting.
Just let my people go that they may serve me.
Mm-hmm.
He gives it the narrow interpretation at this point, alter. Let them go that they may worship me. But ultimately, it does have that final meaning. Let them go that they may serve me, meaning that they're going to become a nation in another place and fulfill their destiny there.
Right. Now, here it says, too, it will consume the rest of the remnant left you from the hail. You have to keep that in mind because when you read the hail account, you might have gotten the idea that everything was destroyed because it kind of says everything is destroyed. But then later it's like, well, how can there still be plants left? Because wasn't everything destroyed? But again, you've got to be careful with the way that the Bible is written. It is written in a not super... It's not written in that kind of exact scientific sense. It's written more as a literature. So just understand that. And I don't think it's trying to give you a false impression. I think for the audience, they wouldn't have had that expectation that when it says that means therefore every last little scrap and everything. I think that's kind of something that is culturally shifted. But even so, we do the same thing all the time. We speak that way, everybody loved this or whatever. Not really. Do you really mean every last individual person? No, not really. And you're not really using ridiculous hyperbole either. It's just a part of language, Now, when we're getting to the end, I think this is interesting. And this is something that I found in from a rabbi, because what he was saying is what is going on here with Pharaoh, because ultimately, Moses says, we're going to go with all of our people. And the big thing that Pharaoh makes an issue of is he makes an issue of keeping the children behind. And that, again, is something that is a common thing from authoritarian dictatorships, right? The worst thing that you can do is control your children's culture, because an authoritarian dictatorship, well, if they can't get you to submit, they can at least get your children to submit, and they can kind of whittle it away to the point where you'll just assimilate, right? And but here you can see his big objection is just that. And when it comes to these, festivals and things like that, that's the point, right? You're going out there to instruct the next generation, and you're doing these ceremonies to instruct the next generation, and that's incredibly important.
Some authoritarian regimes utilize religion to support themselves, but others, in effect, want to replace religion with worship of the state, and particularly of whoever's in charge.
Right.
And Pharaoh in Egypt was considered a god.
Right.
So.
But I just think, like I said, I just think it's interesting that his big bugaboo is the children, right? But again, that's common.
Well, to keeping the children would mean that they would come back.
That's true too.
It's like hostages to make sure they're going to come back.
No, that's true too. But I would think that I don't know. I would think maybe the wives and the daughters might make them come back, but particularly, I don't know. Because he says, he's like, he's like, nope, not the little ones. I'm not gonna allow that. I don't know. I just feel like it has a lot to do with that control. Any other thoughts on this section? We're gonna get to the locusts next. Anything? It's a short little section. So.
Well, to show how politics have evolved in America, when I saw this movie as a little boy in the 50s, I got Cecil B. DeMille's message rather loud and clear. Underlying his interpretation of the story was the Cold War between the so-called free world and the communist world, and that was really, to the 1950s audiences, that was quite clear. But I noticed that when a commentary was issued much later about the movie, that's I think was watered down, if mentioned at all. And they rather emphasized more the civil rights aspect of it, which was also there. He did bring up the concept. He made sure that the African American audience was could relate to the movie. And he had, Nubians, as he called them, as part of the mixed multitude and so forth. And he had that scene in the beginning. And then at the end, he has, on the Passover night, the Princess of Egypt comes with her black servants, and Charlton Heston as Moses says, "Let all who thirst for freedom, come here." So the civil rights aspect was there, and the commentators brought that out, but I don't think they really brought out the Cold War aspects of it, because Hollywood has, I think, in one sense, evolved from the 50s.
Also, just to show you the difference in attitude, that movie was very much about we are freed from oppressive dictatorship, so therefore we can submit to the authority of God. Like, it's just so clear cut, and that would be a legalistic perspective for a lot of people nowadays. So yeah, it's quite changed. Of course, it's even more explicit in the 1920s Ten Commandments movie, because that one has an entire modern plot where somebody is breaking the Ten Commandments and terrible things happen to them. But it's actually a pretty interesting movie, though, because it has a whole spectrum, because it does have somebody in there who's overly legalistic about the Ten Commandments, because she gets all hot and bothered that they're dancing on the Sabbath, and the guy's like, well, you can dance on the Sabbath, who really cares, right? And then you have the guy that's like, well, the Bible's just a bunch of old fairy tales, who cares, right? So you have like the both extremes. And the mother ends up dying because of the son's lack of the Ten Commandments, because he's cutting corners on a building. And the mom kind of blames herself. She's like, I did not raise him with the correct respect of the Ten Commandments. I used it as a bludgeon, and that's why he's rejecting it. And then the son, who's the good son, the balanced one, kind of makes her feel better about it. And it's like, well, yeah, but on the other hand, he's also a louse, so it's not completely your fault. You can watch it online because it's public domain now. It's a silent movie, so
my young son is spending his time with these old movies. I don't think I've seen the whole thing through, because I don't remember some of the things you're covering, so I'm not sure I've seen the whole thing through.
Probably not. Yeah, I haven't actually watched it start to finish either, so
okay.
I just know about it. So anyway, we will see you tomorrow, and we'll have some more special effects and excitement coming, because we're wrapping up the Exodus account. So, well, not the whole book of Exodus, but the actual Exodus of Egypt is coming up. So let's get going.